At the age of 24, I was arrested in a crack cocaine conspiracy. I eventually went to trial, was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. I did 17 years, 5 months, 21 days. Donald Trump passed the First Step Act.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. For everybody that this is your first time, my name is Frank. This is Morals Over Money. We got a guest on the show today. His name is Chad. His channel is Blood on the Razor Wire. Those of y'all that know me and watch the channel frequently know that from spending all my time in the penitentiary, I do not like to consume any type of prison content. I don't even really like to talk about it. But when I first seen this brother's channel, I realized that his channel was a little bit different. And I watched a couple videos and, you know, proved me right. He gets to the real and the rawness of what it's like in the penitentiary. But there's also, you know, hidden gems in there and messages to let the future generation know, like, look, you know, you think everything is going to be, you know, I'm going to get some stripes. My homie's going to look at me differently. The girl's going to look at me differently, which might be true, but it's going to come at a hell of a cost. And that's why I absolutely love this brother's channel, man. So welcome, Chad. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. I definitely appreciate you, and I appreciate the mission that you got going on. I see you on your videos out there in the streets helping people, the barbershop helping people. So you're doing big things, man, and that's what's up.
Thank you. Let me just plug this in real quick, brother, and we're ready to go. All right, so tell us who you are, brother.
Okay. So, all right, my name's Chad. I'm from Rochester, New York. At the age of 24, I was arrested in a crack cocaine conspiracy. I eventually went to trial, was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. I did 17 years, 5 months, 21 days. Donald Trump passed the First Step Act, and it opened an avenue for me to go back in front of my judge and say, hey, there's extraordinary and compelling reasons for you to reduce my sentence. And those were my rehabilitation and the changes in law. The judge agreed, and the judge eventually he reduced my sentence from the 40 years to 20 years. And now I'm out here and definitely grateful to be free, brother.
Man, both of us fucked up coughing. So when you were younger, what type of home did you have? Did you have a two-parent home?
Not at all, man. My father was a drug addict at the age of 3.
Mm-hmm.
My father shot at me and my mother with a 12-gauge shotgun. My mom threw me out the window. She jumped out the window. We got away. She threw me into a pricker bush, climbed the fence. We got away and never went back. My father ended up leaving. He went to Las Vegas. So I pretty much had a single mother household for a while. My mother eventually met another man who became my stepfather. And we had an all right relationship. And then as I started to get older, it kind of soured. I wanted to be the boss. I didn't want him to be the boss. Eventually I would meet my real father at about the age of 13. And my real father, again, drug addict. He comes back to my city from Las Vegas. Drug addict, selling, he was selling drugs, big time weed dealer, but also a drug addict at the same time. And I'm like, man, I want to be him. I idolized him. I want to be like him. Nice car, gold necklaces back then. I think it was Reebok pumps. He had all the nice Reebok pumps when, those came out. And, I kind of like brushed off my stepfather, the guy that was kind of working and doing, the right thing, I guess you could say. And, the relationship just became wild and he ended up moving out of the house and I thought I was the boss now. Now I wanted to be the boss of my family, my mom, my house. And I went downhill from there, man. But, I grew up poor and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being poor, tired of being broke. And that's when I jumped into the drug game, man, started selling bags for somebody. And then I was like, wow, man, I'm selling bags for this dude when I can just take my profit and buy my own 8-ball, bag that up. And, that's where it all starts, man. Started with an 8-ball and eventually led to me going to prison for 40 years.
Yeah. So when your mom met that other man and he came around. That's sort of similar to my situation also. My mom met my sister's father, and he was a hardworking blue collar dude. And for me, like now, that's who I strive to model after. But at the time, it was so far seen, like what you said, how you sort of seen your dad and wanted that, and not the working family man. It seemed like, is that correct or no?
That's 100% correct, because we sometimes, man, we glamorize the wrong people, right? We live in a nation that glamorizes the John Gottis and the Bonnie and Clydes and the drug dealer on your block that's shooting dice with the gold necklace, the nice
Mhm.
car, and the girls, and we don't see the other side that comes with that. Part of being a drug dealer, part of being a robber is your ass is going to prison more than likely, right? And we
Yeah.
don't see that side.
Yep.
All we see is the glamorous side. And then when that guy disappears, there's another guy to fill his role that's out there
Exactly.
shooting dice, and he's that dude gunning his waist, taking a chance with his life for a couple $1,000s on a Friday night.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy. Only if I always tell myself, only if I could know back then what I know now, but it takes 21 years to be 21. Unfortunately, a lot of us end up bumping our heads. Um, so how old were you when you started taking those penitentiary chances?
He's probably about 14 or 15 years old, man. Um,
Okay.
it started with my homeboy. He's out there, his uncle was the crackhead and a drug dealer, right?
Mhm.
And I don't mean that in a derogatory term, but this dude was a
Yeah.
really bad dude. His
Yeah.
mother was a prostitute, and his uncle had a bunch of people coming to the house, and he started selling, bags for his own. Here, hold these for me, Jay. When the people come, and I'm like, man, I'm trying to make a couple dollars. And
Yep.
in my mind, I'm thinking drug dealers get rich, not
Mhm.
realizing really this dude's making peanuts. And
Yeah.
that's how it all started with me. I started selling bags, and within 2 weeks, I'm like, nah, I'm not selling bags no more, man. I'm buying my own stuff, and I'm not working for nobody.
And then skipping ahead to prior to your indictment, um, when you were at the height of the success of being a drug dealer, I think those of us that have reached certain points, we realize that the money's dope, the power's dope, the influence is dope. But I know when I was getting money, I would that was financially one of the best times of my life. But everything else was in disarray. I was fucking paranoid. I was scared. I was
Mhm.
getting high, so I didn't even really get to enjoy all the money and the fruits of my labor because of everything else that came with it. Did you find the same?
100%, man. You're always worried. Like, there were times where I used to be like, man, I'm gonna go sit in this house with my boys. I'm bored, right? So I'm
Hmm.
gonna go sit over here. We're over there playing Madden back then on the PlayStation, and there'd be times where I'm like, man, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm the boss, but I'm
Yep.
sitting in a gatehouse back then. That's what we called them. I'm sitting in a gatehouse, man. I'm
Mhm.
sitting in a spot, taking a chance with my life, and not only getting robbed or shot, but also with hey, if they hit the door, my ass is going to prison. I'm going to jail. Um, so yeah, I always lived that way, man. Thinking people are following me. I drive around the block. That was in my paperwork where they said they
Yeah.
would follow me, and I'd be driving around the block 3 or 4 times before I even pull in my driveway. Always paranoid, man.
Yeah, that was the worst shit for me. I remember one time, literally, I just felt it in my heart that I was already snatched up and they were just building a case on me, which it was 100% true. And I remember, like, I was like, I just want this shit to end. Like, I was ready to go to the fucking police and be like, yo, if y'all gonna grab me now, because I'm out. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Just because my mind was, so fucked up, with that paranoia and knowing that, we feel it in our hearts when we know something's wrong. They say women have that intuition, so do men. We know when something's not right, and we know we crossed that line, and it's just a matter of time. We waiting for them to come, and it's not a good feeling whatsoever.
Never,
um
never a good feeling to
so
always be on the edge.
yeah, hell no, hell no. Explain, or will you get into a little bit, with your indictment, what exactly happened? What were you, what type of drugs were you selling, and how that all came about, please?
Okay, so when I get indicted, right, I get arrested by the local police department, little task force.
Mhm.
They take me over to the county jail. It's a state charge. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to get bailed out. My wife comes, she bails me out. As I'm walking out, they're taking forever. They're like, oh, we can't find your clothes and whatever. I'm like, what? That never happened before. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And they're taking forever. And finally, they get my stuff. I'm bailed out, put on my clothes. I'm walking out. As soon as that door opens, I see these two white dudes standing there, right? And they act like they're just looking around. I start to walk, they're like, hey, Chad Marks, we need to talk to you. And they grab me, man. They cuff me. They put me in this truck and they take me over to the federal building. These are the same case agents, though, that arrested me in the state. They take me over to the federal building. They indict me. My mandatory minimum is 40 to life. I'm charged with a crack cocaine conspiracy. That's 10 years. I'm charged with 1924C, which is possession of a firearm and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. 12 gauge shotgun. That's 5 years on top of the 10. And then they charged me with a second 924C, possession of a 22 rifle and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime. And for that, that's 25 years. So I'm facing 40 years. This is my mandatory minimum. It can't get any lower than that. So it's 10 for the drugs, 5 for the first gun, 25 for the second. And I remember them taking me in this courtroom and I'm looking around, and this might sound crazy. And I start thinking about the show Leave It to Beaver, right? I'm like, man, this looks like some rich ass white people's den.
Oh,
This
yeah,
courtroom
yeah.
looks like a courtroom like I've never seen a courtroom like this before. It's huge. The judge is up high, and I'm like, this don't look like no city courtroom. I'm like, this looks like I'm in serious trouble. And they start reading off the charges. I'm like, wow. I always thought that federal court was for, the cartel dudes and mafia. But man, back then, that's when they started cracking down, man, on, kids in the inner city selling drugs, guns, all that type of stuff, man. And I'm in there like, yeah, this is real.
Yeah. And also I want to make it a point to say, so in the feds, when you have your mandatory minimums, it's not like in the state where they say, okay, your fucking possession with intent to deliver, it carries a maximum of 5 years. No, this is mandatory minimum. The judge legally cannot sentence you to anything below that. Correct.
Nothing below that 40. That's my mandatory minimum.
Yeah. So that's, there's a big difference. A lot of people, when speaking of the feds, don't understand that. So they think, oh, well, I went to court and I had a burglary and they said I was facing 40 years, but my lawyer told me I was only going to get probation, and that's true in the state. In the feds, it's and even in the state, they have mandatory minimum sentences. But that's sort of why there's so much prison reform work and sentencing reform work going on, is because of those mandatory minimum sentences. The judge you had on the other day was a perfect example, like breaking that down, where for anybody that didn't see it, I'm going to link it in this video. He had on a federal judge and he was explaining how he didn't feel it was justice by giving some people these mandatory minimum sentences. And then other times he was like, yeah, I would have gave that person that. But there was more times than not, he was like, this isn't justice by giving this person this sentence of 40 years. How did it feel when you started going? Matter of fact, go ahead. You was about to say something. My fault.
No, I was just going to say that judge is the judge that was at the White House with Kim Kardashian.
Yep.
They were pushing for this kid, Chris Young. And I want your viewers to know how real this is. Chris Young, I think, was 22 years old. And he had 2 priors for like nonsense, petty priors, right? Selling, an 8-ball out on the corner in dime bags. That's his first prior. Then he's out there and he's selling an 8-ball again, petty hustler, right? Dime bags of drugs. And then he gets the federal case. And now his mandatory minimum is life. Mm-hmm. That judge had to give a 22-year-old kid life. There was no way around it. The judge says he didn't want to do it, but I had to. And that's why they're at the White House trying to get him out. Eventually, Chris Young got out of jail. Mm-hmm. But there's so many more people that are stuck in federal prison that can't get out. Many that won't never get out. Yep. There's some people like, Boy George from New York City.
Yeah.
He's a person that, he's got a life sentence. And, now the law has changed. He tried to get out, and I had his lawyer on too. Mm. He tries to get out of jail, and the judge says, you know what? You went to jail and gave up. You're in there, involved in stabbings and drugs, and now the law changed, and I can let you out. But because of your conduct in prison,
Yep.
I'm going to deny this motion, and
Yeah.
you're going to remain with a life sentence. And that's how real this stuff is. Federal prison is, the federal criminal justice system as a whole, the courtroom, the prison, it's not a joke, man. They will put your lights out. They will give you until the sun burns out. They don't care about your mother, your grandmother, your kids. They don't care that you're only 21 years old. They will give you a life sentence.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very crucial point that you brought up. When he went to jail, he was on jail time. He was on jail time. In his mind, he didn't see 30 years ahead and say, no, they're going to change this law and I have the potential or the possibility to get out. He said, no, I'm on jail time, which 95% of the people that go to jail, that's what they're on. They're like, fuck it, I'm here. Whatever's going on, I'm gonna be involved. And because of that misjudgment, now the judge said, I could have sent you home because you was on jail time and you wasn't trying to further yourself. I'm not going to do it. Bet you he's kicking himself in the ass every single day now.
100%.
Tell me about you getting the sentence. Can you share a little bit about the first part of you and your wife's, when you first caught your sentence and stuff like that?
So, when you get arrested, man, this always happens, right? Like, I don't care who you are, 99% of the time, you get a 40-year sentence. Your wife has to go on, man. Your girlfriend, sometimes they might not even tell you. They just won't show up on visits no more. You won't get a letter. Other times, the visits slow down, then the letters slow down, and then they don't answer the phone, right? In my situation, I was sentenced to 40 years. My wife was young. She had to go on with her life. So that's what happened. I mean, I go to prison. She goes on with her life. And it's not an easy thing to deal with. I was married to her. I loved her. I cared about her, but she went on with her life. Do you want me to talk about the other part?
If you, if you're all right.
So I do 18 years, or I do 17 years, 5 months, and 21 days, something like that. I think that's it. I get out. My wife, my ex-wife, right? We end up reconnecting. We end up talking, and we reconnect. And
again,